Gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. And Tyler's probably like, what the heck did we just walk into here?
That is such a cool intro.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, I'd like to thank everyone jumping in here. And I see Rojas's group and Rojas Raid over here, Next Level, and Rojas's Raid. We're rolling up. We got 44, so we'll give it a few minutes before we get started up. I'll take a look and see who we got in here. Jason, thanks for joining the show. Streaming Apps. Again, he was just on Rojas's show. Bob, one of the guys that actually helped create, excuse me, the pirate ship. So he created that. Thanks for that. Canuck, John, thanks for coming on here, Johnny. Michael was like the first person I think in here. He joined. I think he joined about a half hour ago. I see him. Terror, welcome. He needs to join back into the scene. Mr. Butler, Stuart, thanks for joining us. Mike. Steve Franklin, he actually messaged me on one of my videos today about what happened last week. I took a little break. Last week, you guys know I'm a butcher. Last week was a little rough. It's just there's a lot of work to do last week. And came Friday, I had to work Friday. I had to work all week, even Thursday. Come Friday, I worked, and I had nothing left on Friday evening. So I said, you know what, Dab's going to take a day off. Mike, thanks for jumping in here. Juggernaut went to go grab some food. Yeah. Him and Next Level probably went and grabbed something. Flicks Chick, what's up? What's up? What's up? Canuck Gal, she's always watching all the time. Thank you for joining us. Digital Tim. So we got a bunch of them. And then we got Red. He's always waiting on it. Eddie and Albin, who if you guys watch on the Wednesday night shows on our movie show, which won't happen again until January, those two are our regulars, and they are awesome at rating movies and talking about movies. Beach, what's up? So we got that. Sandy, so I looked through there. It looks like Red. Oh, grief. All right, so we're up to 70 people. So I want to thank everybody for jumping in here, and I want to thank Tyler, the AntennaMan. I have been bugging him and blowing up his email for a while now, trying to get him on here because I respect his work. So thank you for joining us today, Tyler.
Yeah, not a problem. Great to be on your show.
And for you guys that may not follow him, I actually put his YouTube show or his YouTube channel in the show notes. So if you're watching this and you're going to say, where is his channel? I don't know how to find it. Click on show more or something. You're going to see it. You're going to click it, and it's going to hyperlink right to his channel. Go subscribe. If you are a cord cutter or someone that's wanting to save some money, I highly, highly suggest to follow this guy. Very knowledgeable. He will be able to explain things in such a way, and that was one of the reasons why I wanted to have him on the show. Explains things very simply and does a very precise job of what you're explaining, and your YouTube channel has exploded. I don't know how many subscribers you got now, but I swear in the last year it's got to have tripled.
Yeah, it pretty much has tripled, and to be honest, I didn't think it would get as big as it did, and it grows every day. So, I got to maintain it. It's great to have that many people follow me, watch my videos, and want to cut the cord. I was worried that not enough people would want to, and everyone would just be paying for cable and satellite their whole lives, throwing thousands of dollars away every year. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And that was on this show we talk about, we call it Streaming Matters, because we give different options, because I try not to tell anybody this is the one thing you need to use, because what works for you may not work for somebody else. You need to figure out what works in your budget, what's your needs, what's your technical level, how much are you going to want to learn. Some people don't want to learn nothing, so you have to figure out what works. So we try to explain, or I try to explain myself as well as have a guest to give people options, and then you listen to the show and get what you want and try to find what fits. And with over the air, if you're in the US or in Canada, over the air is pretty much everywhere. I know in Europe and in UK, because I have people here that watch the show that are from the UK, you're not going to have quite the availability that we have here in the States. So give me a little bit of background about you, Tyler, of like how you got started and how long you've been doing your channel and that kind of stuff.
Well, the fascination, my interest in over-the-air TV started when I was 5 years old. There was an old TV set in the sunroom of my house, and I remember plugging it in and turning it on, and it wasn't connected to cable or anything, but yet it was picking up these channels, and I was just so fascinated by the fact that these television frequencies are pretty much in the air, they're invisible, yet this TV set on the floor, 30 miles from the towers is getting them crystal clear. So, a lot of kids grow up with toys. They play sports. I was a tinkerer. I was just so fascinated by that aspect of over-the-air TV that for a lot of my childhood, I spent a decent amount of time playing with antennas. What really killed me, you're going to get a kick out of this. So I lived in an area that had good reception when I was very, very young, but I was like 6 or 7 at the time. So I couldn't really buy a TV or anything like that. I could barely think much, as a 6-year-old. And I was saving up money to buy this portable black and white TV set that's like, those little 5-inch ones. Mm-hmm. And right when I save up to buy the TV set, my father decides to move to this remote area behind a mountain where there's pretty much non-existent reception. And even looking back today, it's worse than 95% of the United States in terms of reception. And it was just horrible. And it annoyed me because I was like, what the heck? Why is it that I can go in town 5 miles away and get all these stations, but where I live now, I can't get anything. I can't play around. So sure enough, I did continue to play around. I bought different TV sets because I at one time I had like 30 TV sets because I knew different TVs had different tuner sensitivity. I bought different antennas. I experimented with foil. My dad somehow let me install an antenna on the roof when I was, 13 years old. And it was just a lot of research, a lot of, experimentation. Fast forward to college. I went to Penn State for telecommunications. My original career goal was to be a journalist, to be on television or work behind the scenes at a TV station. Unfortunately, a lot of the local TV stations have been bought up by these giant media companies, and they have consolidated jobs to the point that the average reporter has to shoot, edit, report, and do 5 jobs for the price of 1. And I wasn't about that. So when I graduated, I decided I was just going to do my own thing. I filmed weddings and events, and you may wonder, where the heck is this going? I'm not talking about antennas. It was only about 3 years ago, I was kind of aggravated by the current system in the United States, where everyone was paying for cable and satellite, yet these high-definition channels were available free in the air, better picture quality in cable and satellite. And, even in college, it's funny. We didn't have cable half the places I lived, but I had the antenna. And one of the fascinating things about over-the-air is you get the signal before everyone else who's watching on cable and satellite. Because when it's on cable and satellite, there is about a 10, 15-second delay. So when we were watching away games at Penn State, our team was away, my roommates and I would be watching off the antenna, and there'd be a touchdown. Of course, everyone would go, yeah, yeah. And by the time we got it out, you would hear the rest of the town, or the rest of the state college, get there. It was like we were looking into the future. It was really, really cool. But to get back on track, I started installing antennas, experimenting with different models about 3 or 4 years ago. And I was installing them, and I thought, hey, let me go make a YouTube channel just to get some extra income. Originally, my plan was to review technical video equipment that I had from my wedding video business, which got a few views. But then at one point, YouTube said you need 1,000 subscribers in order to monetize. And I was like, well, now I have to really post stuff. I can't just post a few small videos. I have to really start posting stuff. So I was a Grubhub driver at the time. I made videos about Grubhub. And I started throwing other videos out there. I said, you know what? I'm not making, getting a lot of people watching me off Grubhub. Let me just go try this video and that video. And the funny thing is, the first antenna video that I made, I told myself before I was making, I was like, this probably isn't going to catch on. That most people in this country are stupid, and they are not going to, they're going to continue to pay for these channels that are free in the air. Like it's not going to catch on, but what the heck, let me go try it out. So I posted a video about some antennas I recommend. It got a lot of traction. Posted another video and it gained more traction. So then I officially switched up, the YouTube channel to AntennaMan. I'm still doing antenna installations, but fast forward to now, about 6 months ago, probably a little bit longer when the pandemic started, I discovered that I was, if I really focused on my YouTube channel, not only do I help out a lot more people compared to, a handful of people in the area I was installing antennas, but it's a lot safer. And on top of that, if I can, partner with, the right companies or get sponsors, I can make more than if I did antenna installations. So that's where I'm at now. I stopped doing the antenna installations because it was also kind of dangerous. And, I'm focusing strictly on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, it does help. You've helped out a lot of people. And Buzz, there were some people saying that your mic's going up and down, and it is. And it could be he's on a laptop, which we were talking before the show. Maybe not the best best laptop, but yeah, the mic just goes up and down. But it's up now. Hold on, he's checking something. Let's see.
How about now? Because I had a different thing plugged in. I think it was getting 2 mics. Is it better now?
Okay. Yeah. We'll be able to tell when you talk because it was doing the volume would be up and then would go down and then it would come up and then it was like doing a little. So we'll be able to tell. I'll let you know. But yeah, so you were helping more people and doing more. So you were doing more helping people. Now explain. Now, and I saw somebody had posted about True HD, and people saying that you get better reception with over the air than you would with cable. Now, is this true? Not true?
In most situations, it is true because when a signal goes through a cable and satellite system, it has to go through a lot of hoops. It has to be compressed and then decompressed. So most times, and the reason I say most times it's better than cable and satellite is because you're getting the direct signal from the TV station. Now, there are some exceptions. The exceptions are because of the FCC repack. A lot of TV stations had to channel share with other stations in the market, which means there's lower bandwidth. Most times it's not that noticeable, but if you have, like in my area, there's 10 channels shoved on one single frequency. So the quality looks really bad on some of the stations. Now, if you're not paying for it, you're not going to care. But if you had cable and you were getting a signal that was, a standard definition sub-channel, you'd probably have it better on cable, but most networks and most local stations, you're going to get better picture quality over the air.
Right. And I've noticed that with being an over-the-air guy that I've had over-the-air for years. And I do find it just people will come over and people will watch if they're come over for the game. And you're exactly right about you see things before everybody else does because and it's even worse if you ever have anybody that so satellite and cable, it takes time for it to get there and then get back to you. And people that do IPTV, it's even worse because sometimes there's like a 2-minute delay or a good minute delay sometimes with that because that goes to the internet, goes to a server, goes here, there, and then comes back to your home. So yeah, you can, if you're over the air, you're definitely seeing it before a lot of people. So it's a neat idea or a neat way of seeing it. You are seeing into the future. So one of the other questions that I had on here, so you got into doing this, and I mean, what you've got to be close to 100,000 subscribers or 150,000 subscribers. Do you know where you're at now?
I'm currently at, I think, about 110,000 subscribers, and
Okay.
it continues to grow as I post more and more videos. I'm hoping to have about 200,000 sometime in 2021. And the thing is, it's all about sharing my videos, because a lot of people don't become aware of my videos until they buy a junk antenna. And a lot of times it doesn't work and they give up and go back to cable, or they search on Google, and depending on what they search, I may come up or I may not come up. But a lot of my subscribers have shared my channel to other people and helped them out that way. So that helps it grow as well. It's like I'm not reaching as many people as a lot of YouTubers because this stuff isn't being searched as much as it should be.
Right. And I'm going to use an example when you're talking about antennas and people that sometimes struggle with antennas. And I have an example here. This one here. Tyler, I know people that bought this antenna, and you've talked about this antenna. I don't know. And granted, it may be called a different name, but these antennas are highly pieces of shit. I mean, they're going to break. They're held together. It's plastic and aluminum, right?
Yeah, there are multiple things wrong with this antenna. I mean, the first is it's not really that good of a design. I mean, it works okay if you're in like a moderate to strong signal area, but the main problem I have with it is it has a built-in preamp, which is pretty much an amplifier. And what most people don't understand is it's made very cheap, and give it like a year or two, the internal preamp fails up at the antenna. And when that happens, it's almost like the antenna isn't even connected. It doesn't have powerless pass through. So what that means is you probably lose I don't want to say most people, but a decent amount of people, probably between 50 to 75% of people that buy this antenna, it fails within, a year, even sometimes a matter of a few months, depending on where you live. And people just don't know better. They think, there's a lot of false marketing claims about antennas claiming 150
Well, it's a
mile
4K.
range.
It's a 4K too.
Yeah,
You know
there's
that
not even
it's
4K
awesome
over
because
the air. There's not even 4K over the air. Exactly. It's insane. And people are falling for it. I mean, 95% of people believe there is like HD antennas are real. There's digital antennas are real.
Mhm.
There's actually, and I keep saying this in all my videos, people get annoyed that they have to hear this from me over and over again, but there is genuinely no such thing as an HD antenna. Antennas are designed for either UHF or VHF frequencies. HD has to do with the picture size. That has nothing to do with how the antenna receives the frequency.
Mm-hmm. So, but if you guys, if I can give you one bit of information, do not buy this type of antenna. I mean, it's like he says, it's going to fail, and it's going to fail probably sooner more than later. And this is actually high, $70. You see these on Amazon all the time for 30 or 40 bucks. And you could go and you can buy one every year. The rotator is going to stop working very soon. That doesn't last long. And you think, oh, I can turn the antenna from inside my house. I'm telling you, that will stop working very soon. So, and this is the type of stuff where people use this type of antenna, and then they find it doesn't work. And then they say, well, I don't get good reception in my area. Well, maybe if you bought something that's a little bit different, you could get better reception. So, and there's so many, and they're all not knocking China, but they're all Chinese, and they're all a bunch of knockoffs. And so definitely stay away from that, guys. Just stay away. What would be some of your suggestions? So if someone's thinking about wanting to cut the cord, they want to get over the air, because the majority of the U.S. can get your local ABCs, NBCs, CBSs, Foxes. You can normally get that in your area. I don't know the percentage, but I'd have to probably say a good 90% of the U.S. can get their local over the air.
It's about 99% is the number, because I offer a service on my website. What's called a custom antenna recommendation, where I'll go through someone's reception situation and take a look at the frequencies and make a specific antenna recommendation. I've ran over 2,000 of those. So out of the 2,000 reception reports, I tend to notice trends. 99% of people can get their local channels, and probably between 20 to even 50, 60, 70 channels over the air. What's happening is most people are going on Amazon, and there's a big problem on Amazon. If you type in antennas on Amazon, you get 3 pages of junk before you find a decent model. They try it and they give up. They say antennas don't work because they quote unquote tried an HD antenna and it didn't work. It's like, well, no wonder you bought a piece of crap.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's so what would be if someone was going to cut, if someone was like, I want to get an antenna, what would be some of the steps that you would suggest them to start walking through? Would you say first they need to maybe take a look at the FCC? What did you say that? What was it? FCC dot. I think I
the
saved
FCC
that.
DTV reception maps.
There we go. There you go. So would going something like this first? Would that be like their first step before they go to buy an antenna, or would you say go in a different route?
I would say it would definitely be looking up your reception, because it all depends. I saw a few of the comments, people saying, what's the best antenna? What's the top antenna?
Yep.
It really depends on the frequencies in your area and how strong and weak they are. There are probably like 10 or 12 different antennas I quote unquote recommend. And it all depends on the frequency. So what you're doing right now is what I do like 20 times a day with my custom recommendation service. And just looking at that report, I can typically tell the signals are strong. They're on VHF and UHF, which means you need a combo antenna. You also want to click on all the ABC, NBC, CBS stations to see if they're coming from the same direction or if they're coming from multiple directions. In your situation, you're between markets. So you would definitely want an antenna possibly with bays that could be pointed in different directions. I usually don't recommend omnidirectional antennas because they just don't do well with like most situations. But if I was running a reception report with this, I could tell the signals are strong, and I would ask you, do you want stations from just, your local stations, just care about your local stations, or do you want those out of market stations that come from the other direction? And depending on what you say, and again, I wish I could give you just the estimation. I would have to look deeper. I would say either a two-way antenna setup or something like the DBAE, which allows you to point the antennas in different directions. The problem with that is it doesn't have VHF, and then you have to get, a VHF kit, and they're sold out. So that means combining antennas, and it gets really complicated quick. I mean, I have a lot of people that think I can just say, oh, this is the antenna I recommend for everyone. It doesn't work that way. It's pretty complicated. Even your situation is pretty complicated.
Yeah. Well, in for the most part, and you and I've talked before, and actually I messaged you on some of your videos about some of my setup, and I will say the YouTubers that are accessible, Tyler is very accessible. He answers questions when he does a video. You do a very good job of answering those questions, not for every single one, but a lot of times you will answer those questions, and this is free of charge. He will do it, out of just trying to support his channel. And I gave an example of what antenna I had. I gave, I think, my zip code, and you're like, well, and I said, I'm having trouble with one channel. I was having one issue, and it was this channel. It was my channel 11, which was 60 plus miles away, I think. But the problem is that I bought the Channel Master, which is a good antenna, but the problem is that it's on VHF frequency, other than the UHF. And correct. So can you explain the difference between UHF and VHF so that people, because they're not the same?
No, they are not. Now, most TV stations do broadcast on UHF, but every market has one or two on VHF. And UHF stations they broadcast on channels 14 and above. One thing is keep that on there. Most TV stations don't broadcast on a channel number you know them as. So he has an NBC5, it broadcasts on UHF channel 617, right? You can see why I said it gets tricky. But if you're looking at the channel the station broadcasts on, VHF stations broadcast on channels 2 through 13, then UHF is channels 14 and above. So see, he's got high VHF 11, CBS2 broadcast on UHF 35. See, guys, it can kind of get confusing, but to get back to the point, UHF frequencies, they're higher powered and they do better going through building material. And they're usually picked up better with smaller antennas. while VHF TV stations broadcast on channels 2 through 13, they have certain characteristics. Since they are lower frequencies, they have longer wavelengths, which don't do as good of a job going through building material. They aren't as high powered, but they do a good job going through going up and down in tough terrain. So in my area, we used to have all UHF stations, and in the analog era, I couldn't get anything. One of them went to VHF, and I can actually pick them up at my father's place now, where it is. And I saw someone says, yeah, VHF stands for very high frequency and UHF stands for ultra high frequency. I just use VHF and UHF because very high and ultra high can definitely get confusing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But VHF, one other thing I got to mention is VHF requires a long antenna element, typically between 3 to 6 feet wide to pick it up. And most antennas on the market don't have that. The small flat antennas, you look at them, they're about a foot in length. So most markets, almost every market has a VHF station. If you're using a UHF antenna, it's not going to pick up a VHF station that well. And that was something you ran into because you told me that your antenna was the Extreme 80 by Channel Master, and it's great for UHF, but it doesn't have any VHF elements, which means it's not going to do a good job picking up those two stations that you had said the two stations you have problems with. I was like, let me go see. They're on VHF, and sure enough, that's came to that conclusion.
And it was like what like I said, it's 60-ish miles from me, so it was just at that distance that sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. When I was thinking, well, I've got a good antenna and a preamp, because we'll talk about that in a second. But I'm thinking I've got all the things that I need, and you're like, well, but that antenna doesn't give you some of the aspects you need for that VHF.
Yep, got that right. It's a common mistake. I mean, what also happens is I have people on my YouTube channel that will say, oh, I have, for example, in New York, CBS 2, NBC 4, Fox 5, they're on VHF. And I'm like, no, they actually broadcast on UHF. And it confuses people. Like, this stuff, I'll try to explain it as much as I can in this video, but it's pretty deep and there's a lot to it.
And all right, so and like you were saying, even though, like, for me, here's channel 5, but it broadcasts on channel 17. Now you're not going to see it as channel 17. It's where it's broadcast. Now let's talk just for a second about the repack, because the repack, and if you followed the repack, the FCC repack, they changed because they wanted more. Wasn't it more? They wanted more airways or more room for the cell signals. So they did a repack. Am I right on that?
So the FCC repack, let me go start with the TV band to kind of give you a history of what the FCC has been doing. They've essentially been selling the TV frequencies to cell phone providers multiple times. They did it in either the late 80s or the 90s. For those of you old enough, it used to be TV channels were channels 2 through 81 or 83. I think it was 83. And then in the 80s or 90s, the FCC was like, well, let's go take some of that away, give it to the cell phone companies for cell phones. And then they did it again in 2009, and then it went up to channels 2 through 52. Now that was about 20-year span. In less than 10 years, they did it again. And they said, okay, well, we're going to give, cell phone companies channels 38 through 50, 51 or 52. And, but that had consequences. It had big consequences nationwide when they did that, because two things happened with the FCC repack. Of course, they shrunk the television band, and that required a lot of TV stations to not only move frequencies, but some of them had to go off air, some of them had to channel share, and also cause corruption. I mean, the owner of Dell Computers, for any of you who have Dell Computers, this is an interesting thing that happened.
Yeah, this is a great story. This is true too. This is the way it happened.
True. So Michael Dell came up with this investment company that bought out smaller TV stations, and one of them happened to be in my area. These smaller repeater stations were designed to, increase coverage in very rural areas, people who needed these low-powered stations. This company bought out a whole bunch of them nationwide and resold them to the FCC, because the way the FCC had channels go off the air or move is they paid them. And if you went completely off the air, they paid you anywhere between, I think, like $10 to $200 million. So Michael Dell's investment firm bought out a bunch of stations. I forget how many there were, I think a dozen or two. And his main purpose was to just resell them in the FCC repack and make money, understanding that his company is worth, I think, $84 billion. So the end result It happened in my area, and I was outraged when it happened because the station that was in my area of the Poconos was the only thing you could pick up because the area was so mountainous. Now, if you get a giant antenna, you might get a little Philadelphia, but this station was specifically designed to service this area, and he crushed it in many stations nationwide just for the purpose of making some extra money. And there's a lot of corruption in this stuff. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if the FCC tries, shrinking the television band again in 10 years. And this is why I want to get my channel, to grow as much as possible so I can expose this corruption. And, so that way, if they try pulling this crap again, people will be aware instead of not knowing what's going on.
Or think it doesn't affect them. And
it affected one other thing.
Right.
Yeah, one other thing I got to say about the FCC repack is it caused a huge mess for TV stations. I think about 25% of them have been at reduced power for an extended period of time because when the FCC repack happened, TV stations had to move frequencies, like hundreds of them. And it's not just a matter of changing a knob or, tuning some stuff on the transmitter. A lot of them needed brand new antennas. They needed new transmitters. And there weren't enough tower crews to get the work done. And so the end result was these stations would move to a new frequency but not have the right antenna. So they'd be at a low power while they worked on their main tower. And it was a huge mess. I mean, in Philadelphia alone, the CBS, Fox, and I think another station were at reduced power for almost a year and a half, which a lot of people lost their signal. And it was just unfortunate.
And then, so if you lost, if you were an over-the-air person and you're at a limited, you're at a point where you need the full signal of that tower to get your TV channel, and they're at reduced power, so that means you don't get your channel. Then you're going to say, I've got to go get cable, or I've got to get satellite because I can't pick up those channels. And did now some of the channels jumped on other towers, if I'm not mistaken, didn't they? Some of them would move, like share towers or something like that. I thought I saw that on one of your videos.
Yeah, that is correct. So some stations that went off the air didn't ultimately go off the air. They just channel shared with another station in the market. So like Telemundo and NBC are owned by the same company. So usually in a market, they would sell whatever was the weaker signal. So let's say Telemundo had a weaker signal. They would sell the Telemundo frequency back to the FCC, get, let's say, $60 million, and then channel share with the NBC station. So whatever coverage the NBC station had, the Telemundo station would have now. And there'd be a little impact on picture quality, not too much. They usually know what they're doing in terms of what bandwidth to reserve for what station. But yeah, and so in most areas, I want to say in most areas, once the repack was finished, a lot of TV stations took it upon themselves to increase their signal because they knew cord cutting is going to happen, and they really need to make an effort to increase their over-the-air coverage. Now, others did not. Others had the mindset, well, we don't care about our over-the-air signal. We're just going to let it be crappy, and if someone can't get us, well, they'll pay the retransmission fee on cable and satellite, and we'll get money that way.
Yeah, and we're going to get to that part because that is one of the things for you guys that have a Dish Network or DirecTV, you may have lost some of your channels, and that was one of the reasons why I really wanted to have Tyler on here. So we'll get to that in just a second. One of the other things, and I not to pull back a little bit when you're talking about Dell and the repack, and you were talking about selling channels. So some of the channels closing, and to me, so certain companies used it as an investment to buy cheaper channels. So they bought the cheap channel, like you said, that channel, that a network or that channel in your area. They buy it at a reduced price because it's just some out in the sticks, some small company. We're going to buy that. And then they sell the rights to that frequency because the FCC wants that frequencies for sale, because that's where the money is, because the companies have to pay for that. I don't want to say bandwidth, but that the frequency, airspace or whatever. I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, but they've got to pay for that. So they bought these things. What'd you say? Dell bought it.
Yeah, Michael Dell.
Michael Dell buys it as an investment just to basically sell it. To basically, he buys it to close it so he can sell the air rights to the FCC, who's going to sell it to Verizon or T-Mobile or whoever. So that's kind of stuff that's happening. And as you said, this isn't the last time it's going to happen.
No,
because
it's definitely going to happen again.
yeah, because the thing is let's go ahead. We'll talk about if you're a direct TV user or AT&T. Some people have it as AT&T. So if you have direct TV or Dish Network, you may have seen that you've lost your channels, your CBS, NBC, CBS. Tyler, explain to the people that are watching, why have they lost those channels right now in the last couple
So
days?
I'm going to toot my own horn a tiny bit and mention that there's an in-depth video on this on my channel.
Yes.
If you guys want to get more information,
Yep.
it's gonna
And I have
really
it in
make
the
your
show
blood
notes.
boil.
Yep. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's really
in
going to
the
make your blood boil. But the way cable companies operate is they have to pay what's called retransmission fees to TV networks to rebroadcast their signals. So, for example, let's say ESPN. Every person who has ESPN, they have to pay, let's say, $5 a subscriber, something like that. What happened in the past like 20 years, and it's skyrocketed, is local channels have been charging these companies for the rights to recarry their broadcasts, and it usually should be a few cents or pretty cheap, whatever it is, because it's a local channel that's available free over the air. In the past decade, these large media companies have gobbled up these small local stations, and they've made it so they can strong arm these cable and satellite providers by upping their retransmission fees and threatening to remove the channel if they don't give in. Now, a number is in 2008, so flashback about 10 years ago, there was 500 million, so $500 million collected by local TV stations from cable and satellite companies rebroadcasting their signal. And that probably sounds like a really high number, 500 million. It jumped up to $10 billion in less than 10 years in 2018. So what that means is these companies, these big media companies, are charging more and more for the rights to carry their channels. And you may think, oh, what does that matter? That gets passed on directly to the customer. So the reason why cable and satellite is so expensive is not so much that the cable companies just feel like, charging a crap ton of money. Of course, they make money. I'm not going to say they're perfect angels. Mm-hmm. But it mainly has to do with these big media companies buying out all these stations and using them as leverage, because what's happening right now with DirecTV and Dish Network, and this is pretty crazy. I mean, it's been going on for a while, but it's just getting worse and worse, is that I'm going to use the example of Nexstar Media Group and Dish Network. Nexstar is known for doing this. So let's say, Nexstar, what Nexstar is trying to do is Nexstar is trying to increase the retransmission fee that the cable and satellite company has to pay them. And the cable and satellite company is basically saying, in this case, it's their Dish Network, they're saying, no, this isn't fair because your programming hasn't changed. If anything, you've laid off staff and, because of consolidation, we think that your channel is still worth whatever it is. Let's say it's $1 per subscriber. And then Nexstar, it's in the amount, I think Nexstar wants $1 billion from Dish for all their channels. So if you divide it up, it's a lot of money per subscriber. Nexstar is saying, well, if you don't give in to our demands, this is what we're going to do. We're going to pull our channels from your provider, and we're going to run stories on our local newscast saying that you pulled them. The viewers are going to believe us because they watch our local news every day and they believe our anchors. And then you're going to lose all these customers. And in my opinion, that is propaganda. When you use a news outlet and specifically lie to your viewers to get what you want, I always hear about people talking about Russian propaganda, the certain news outlets, or, Chinese propaganda. This is like an American version of propaganda, when these companies, like, they're technically not really hurting them, but what they're doing is increasing their bill. And the customers don't know better. I think 99% of people, when these retransmission disputes happen, they lose a local channel. They blame the cable and satellite provider, and what they'll do is they'll hop on another provider. The same thing will happen. They'll hop on another provider, and the madness will never end. That's the thing. If you look at the chart and the way retransmission fees have increased over the last decade, it's never going to end until people truly cut the cord and not just go through a cheap streaming service, like YouTube TV, because they have to pay retransmission fees too. They really need to stop paying these greedy companies altogether, both the networks and the cable companies, and let them wither away and die. Because if no one's paying for cable and satellite, they'll have no more leverage, and they'll have to actually produce quality content for people to watch.
Well, one of the things you're talking about with this, and so over the air is free. So I can pick up over the air. Anybody in the U.S. and I'll say Canada too, pick up over the air, and you can pick up these channels. And then, so what ends up happening, as you said, these big companies buy up all these small companies. Now they have this leverage. I've got 150 stations. I own 150 stations. So when I sit down with Dish Network and I say, I got 150 stations and you're going to pay this, and Dish Network says, I'm not going to pay that. And you say, I got 150 stations, you pay it or I pull them all. That it's blackmail. I mean, it's propaganda, blackmail, it's strong arming. It is, you're going to pay what we tell you to pay or we're going to pull it. Now, one of the funny things is, and I think you said it on the video, is the 80% of the people that get TV pay for it. So either satellite or cable company. Is that what, when I watched your video, I think that you said 80%. So that's only 20% get it over the air.
Yep, you got that correct. Correct. You got that correct. It's about, the figure is somewhere between 80 to 85% of people who watch live TV pay for it. And I think that's like, which means 80% of the country. Well, I think Nexstar reaches like 80% of the country. That means 80% of the country, if they have Dish or DirecTV, they're being misled, and that's a lot of people. I mean, these companies reach a lot of people, and you know, it's just pretty crazy to say the least.
And I mean, I can understand an ABC saying, all right, so if Spectrum, if you're going to have my Spectrum, Comcast, Dish Network, whoever you are, if you're going to rebroadcast my channel, you should be able to give me a little bit. I actually can understand that. Now, the channel, let's say my local ABC. How does that local ABC make money? Now, to me, the retransmission fee is kind of like it's like an extra caveat. They're really making their money off of the ads, right? For the Ford commercial to show on the TV is where they make their money. Now, the local news or the local channel is able to say, we have 200,000 houses that we go to. So we reach 200,000 homes. And so we're going to sell our commercial for X amount of money, right? That's why the Super Bowl makes, you know, every commercial so much, because of its saturation rate. So they say, we reach this many homes. With the help of satellite TV, they reach how many more homes? So it's like the local channel needs that satellite or that cable company to reach the homes to make the money, because they're able to saturate the market with more homes, and that's how they sell their commercials. So it's like they're double dipping. It's like, all right, we were going to make money off the ads that run on the TV all day long. If you watch regular TV, the ads are constant. So you're going to watch it constantly, and then we want to get off the retransmission fee. And not only make a little bit off of it, they're holding people hostage, as we saw someone said on the side over here, holding it as a hostage because they own so much. And people, this is what you're able to, the majority of my viewers can get this stuff for free outside of paying for a decent antenna. Maybe you can get away with an indoor antenna if you're in a good market. Maybe you can get away with a cheap antenna if you're in a good market. But if you're in a bad market, you're going to need a little bit better antenna. But once you invest it, it's done. The investment is there. You're only going to reap the benefits, and it's not going to take long for you to recoup your cost, because most people that I talk to, TV alone, they're paying anywhere from $100 to $120 a month for TV alone. And so that's discounting the cable, your internet, because sometimes it's one package. I'm not even counting the cable, your internet. Just TV is sometimes $100 to $120. You can buy a really nice antenna for $120. I mean, you can, and if people don't pay attention, you're going to allow these monopolies, as someone has said, and that is true, because I've complained numerous times about Disney. Disney owning so damn much, they have leverage over these companies to make them pay whatever they want. And the only way we can do is hopefully we educate people and say, hey, you don't have to pay that.
Yep, and that's my goal, the goal of my channel. One thing I always get a kick out of is people who get antennas. This is the one investment that's going to get them free from cable forever. A lot of people bargain hunt with them. You know, they'll spend $100, $150 a month on cable and satellite, and then they'll only spend $40 on a junk antenna. And either sometimes it works, but like most times it doesn't. And then they'll stay with the $150 a month. Like it never made sense to me. Like even when I installed antennas, I would have like a few customers that would say, you know, the average install cost was between like $300 to $400 parts and labor included, which is on the cheaper end. And people would say, oh, that's expensive. And I was like, well, listen, if you're paying, you know, professionally, I would say, how much do you pay for cable? Okay, $75 a month. Well, that would pay for itself within 4 or 5 months. And then that money goes back in your pocket every year. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, most people watch the majority of viewing. I feel like the important shows and live sporting events happen on your local channels, ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox. And for anyone who has cable or satellite with local channels, or even a streaming service like YouTube TV, you are paying for those channels. Like they're free in the air. It's almost like, you know, you have like I compare it to like if you were in an area that has like a I don't know the best analogy, but basically you had access to clean water from a spring, wonderful clean water, and then you're buying 5-year-old bottled water that you're paying for. Like it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, but it comes in a bottle, and I don't have to do nothing. I just turn this. I don't have to walk to the sink. It's right there in the bottle.
Right.
I mean, that's with the people that pay. And again, you pay for what you want. I'm not going to tell you have to do this. But is cable TV, satellite TV easier? Sure, it is. Do you have to, if you're going to get an antenna, a little bit of work? Sure. Maybe you got to put an antenna outside. If you're in a great location, one of the things that if you're in a good location, that Mohu, the Mohu leaf does a good job. Channel Master. Now, have you tested that Channel Master indoor antenna? I bought it for my son, and he didn't need it.
I know what you're talking about, and I have to see. The thing is, I have a lot of people saying you should test this antenna, you should test that antenna. Yeah. And it's not feasible to me, you know, because I let them out. But like to get back to the point, the Channel Master antenna, is it the smart antenna that you're talking about? The one that has like automatic gain?
Yes. Yep.
So that antenna, and I'm really kind of you know, disappointed that Channel Master jumped on this bandwagon. But they're using hype words. It doesn't even have VHF elements. Now, it probably works comparable to the Mohu. So if you're in a strong signal location, it'll work. But, you know, any outdoor antenna or even, you know, like the Clearstream 2 Max that has a VHF element is going to outperform it. You know, amplifiers only make up for signal loss in a coaxial cable. They don't magically bring in stations that don't come in the first place. And if you have a small antenna, no antenna should be, you know, a small box unless you're very close to the towers. You know, antennas are supposed to have, you know, rabbit ears for the VHF.
Yeah. Well, then when you say rabbit ears, all right, so you probably aren't as old as me, but when I was a kid, I was the antenna man because my dad would be like, because I was the remote and the antenna. Because we didn't have a remote back in the 70s. My dad would say, turn to channel 6. And I was the guy that walked over the TV, turned channel 6, and then I would move the antenna and the aluminum foil, because you mentioned aluminum foil. I would move the aluminum foil and the antenna rabbit ears and turn the dial to the right thing. And then like, so it's when I think of the old, how easy it is now, there's no reason not to. And yes, depends on your location. A Mohu, I actually had a Mohu. We had it at work. The TV got no reception. I bought a Mohu leaf, stuck it up there. Yeah, I got a handful of stations. Now it was inside of a brick building, inside of downtown, and so a bunch of brick buildings around it. So yes, it got more channels. But some people that say, "Well, I had this antenna and it worked great," or "I had this one and it sucked." Location, and preamp. Explain about preamps, like amplifiers, because some antennas are amplified and some are not.
So the thing is, I want to make clear to everyone, I've been trying to make clear, is that it's better to have a good antenna that isn't amplified than a junk antenna that's marketed as an amplified HD digital antenna. The reason is you're picking up, TV frequencies in the air, and the design of the antenna is probably going to be the bulk of probably the most important thing you have. Now, to get back to the amplifier thing, amplifiers are mainly used to make up for signal loss in long coaxial cables or cheap coaxial cables on, indoor antennas. Preamps are great for outdoor antennas because usually when you have an outdoor antenna, you have to run, a 30, 40, 50, 60-foot cable. And depending on how strong or weak the signals are, I found in most situations where I install antennas, you don't need the preamp as long as you use a good quality cable. But again, people are bargain hunting. They're going to Walmart and buying the cheapest 50-foot spool of cable they can get. But if you're using a good cable, you don't necessarily need a preamp. It's only if let's say you set up an antenna and you connect a short cable and you notice you're getting 30 channels. And after you run a long cable, you get only, 20. That means you're losing a long cable run, and the preamp works very well for that because you put the preamp up at the antenna, and it has a power inserter that powers the preamp through the coaxial cable, so there's no electric or anything up at the antenna. And where I live, I had to use an antenna in the attic while I was working on my roof to put a new mast and test out new antennas. The interesting thing is I lost a decent amount of channels when running a 40-foot cable. A bunch of them disappeared, but when I had the preamp, they came back.
So the preamp is going to help you when you have that long. And to be honest, I don't know anybody that has their antenna close right beside their TV. Most, even if it's on top of your roof. I mean, I'm in an apartment, and if I think of where I have mine on the deck, and then it comes along the side, it comes in the window, then comes around the house, around the apartment. Even that, you're still going to get quite a bit of distance. So you're going to lose. And that's one of the reasons why I have a preamp, because of the long length that I had to go. And I found I was losing some of that. I was getting some pixelation on channels that I shouldn't. I was like, I shouldn't be getting pixelation on that. Put a preamp on it. Well, it cleared it right up. And so
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say preamps, let me say preamps sometimes can make reception worse. So a lot of times I have people that have an antenna, and may not even be a bad antenna, just maybe a small antenna, and they add a preamp on it, it doesn't help. So they're like, oh, the preamp doesn't work. So they get another preamp. Pretty much if you add a preamp and a preamp doesn't help your reception problems, the issue is the antenna you have. And you need the right antenna for your area, or a larger antenna. But what were you about to say before I wanted to get this point across?
I was gonna mention, you were talking about cables, like what type of cables, because that again is something that when I was looking at it, I was not trying to buy the cheapest antenna cable, the coax cables. There is different grades of coax cables, and so that is another thing. You think you're being cheap by saying, oh, I just need just a cheap ass coax cable. That's not necessarily going to help you.
Yeah, so RG, what a lot of people, what I've noticed is RG6 is what comes to mind. A lot of people, I see some of you are saying it in the comments. Yeah. There are still some junk cables that are made with, that are labeled as RG6. Like I've seen in Walmart, RG6, quote unquote, and it has like very little shielding. As some person had said, you want an RG6 quad shield cable. That's what you want to look for. Quad shield, or at the very least, dual shield. I've seen cables that are pretty much paper thin, and they label them as RG6, even though like they may have RG6 connectors at the end or whatever, but they are not good cables. You want to look for RG6 quad shield. And I do have a general list for anyone who's not sure about their cable. I have a general list of recommended antennas, accessories, and cables on my Amazon store. It's amazon.com/shop/AntennaMan. It's in the description of any of my videos. The cable alone can make a huge difference.
All right. So explain about shielded, because people that don't understand shielded and how that works, that helps with other electronics. Am I right?
You're correct. So shielding has to do with, the best way to describe it is shielding, like protection around the center conductor of the cable and, the other parts of the cable. The more shielding you have, the better protected it is, not only from signal loss, but also interference. If you have a very thin coaxial cable, it almost starts to have the characteristics of an antenna. So when you connect an antenna to it, it may start to almost act as an antenna and affect your reception because, if it's long enough, it may, attenuate the UHF frequencies. It may help with the VHF, but attenuate the UHF frequencies.
All right, I went ahead and posted I'll post it here, where this is the Amazon shop where, again, you're posting and you're saying, hey, these are decent devices or decent equipment to try to figure out your needs. And again, there's no one antenna that's going to fit everybody. That's not going to happen. It depends on where your location is, what channels you're trying to pick up. And there's different factors into it. So it's not to pull out, Tyler had said, there's not a cookie cutter,
one size fits all model.
Yeah, it's not one size fits all. You have to take a look at your situation. That's why you want to take a look at that fcc.org or .com, I can't recall, .gov, fcc.gov website. You want to look at what channels are you wanting, how far away they are, then say, okay, my channels are all real close. So then you're like, okay, so that gives me more options. I have, I can do a lot of, if your channels are far out, or and where you were talking about in the Poconos, I mean, you are at a disadvantage trying to get channels in when you're in a mountainous. It's not like you're just going through the trees. I mean, you're going through dirt, mountains, and rock, and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And pretty much the weaker the signals are, the more fine-tuned you got to get the antenna right. You can't, there's less wiggle room for slip-ups in terms of not having the appropriate antenna for the frequency. So if you have UHF, VHF high and you have a low VHF station, it's not gonna, it may work, if you're in the suburbs, but in the rural setting, you really have to do your homework and get it figured out and make sure you're doing it all correctly. Now, thankfully on my page, I've kind of narrowed down some of the better antennas. Again, it's not a one size fits all model, but it's a lot better than going on Amazon, just typing in HD antenna or amplifier or, cable. It narrows it down because Amazon has been flooded. I mean, absolutely flooded with horrible generic models. And I'll make this clear to everyone. I am not swayed by any single company or any kind of antenna or any of that. I am swayed by results. And the results show time and time again, these cheap antennas, these cheap cables, these cheap amplifiers on Amazon perform very poorly. And it's not worth the headaches of saving $20 for unreliable reception.
Terror had a question. Now he posted and he says, I don't get how the type of shielding works. Normally you need one end to be grounded, the open to be open to the drain. Are you able to answer onto that, or?
That's a little too technical for my aspects. All I will say is that the better the shielding, the more it's protected against interference and all that. So I do know a lot about antennas, and this I will gladly admit to anyone who asks me. I don't know everything about antennas and cables, and some people know more than me, which is great. I'm always learning new things, and in terms of the shielding, I just understand that, dual shield, a quad shield is going to be better than a dual shield. RG6 is going to be better than RG59.
Yeah. Let's see. So he said if the shield is at the grounded potential outside type of signal to get through. And I mean, to me, shielded is basically trying to, the way I see it, it's helping to keep interference from coming in on the cable. And when it's running long. And that was one of the things where I understood when I was looking at getting a coax cable and it was talking about shielded. To me, when it was talking about other things can interfere, especially when you have a long run and you have other, I mean, how many electronic devices do we normally have in our homes now? I mean,
and a lot of them cause interference on VHF frequencies are notorious for interference from all these different things like LED lights, for example. I have a lot of people almost every day. I get an email from someone saying, yeah, I found out it was the LED lights interfering with my VHF frequencies.
That could be the problem with my channel 11. I need to turn my damn lights off. Because
Yeah, it can
I
be.
actually bought, well, I bought the LED, the LED lights. Maybe it's these. It could be my light bulbs. I could have them on. I will test that. I'll test off turning off these lights in here and see if I pick up channel 11 better. So, but yeah, there's so many options. We can look at different things. So what would be, so we talked about taking a look at FCC Gov or looking at some of those sites. You said Rabbit Ears was another site that may not be as user friendly.
So AntennaWeb.org is the most common and user friendly, but the problem with it is it tends to, what I say, underestimate the amount of channels you receive. So if you're in like a city or a suburb, it will probably show you the amount of channels you get. But if you're in a rural area, what it's going to do is it's going to say no signals at this location. And it's so wrong. Like, it blows my mind how many times it will say that. And you can get, like, to give you an idea of how inaccurate it can be, at my old house I used to live at, it said I couldn't get WNEP, which is a station I show on my YouTube videos when I test out antennas. I could pick it up with a paper clip on the third floor of my room, yet AntennaWeb.org said it wouldn't come in. So AntennaWeb.org tends to be very conservative when it comes to giving results. It's very user-friendly. But I do have a video on this topic that I show you the 3 different websites to go through on my YouTube channel. I pretty much say, you know, AntennaWeb works for this, FCC works for that, and then Rabbit Ears is the most accurate, but it's very technical. If you look up on just easily on YouTube, just like how to locate over-the-air channels in your area, that's pretty much the title of the video. I show you exactly what to do and what to look for, and based on the color codes, you see kind of what antenna you would need, whether you need a small one, a medium-sized one, or a large one. It kind of give you some guidance. Like, unfortunately, I reach about 600,000 people every month, and I can't feasibly respond to every single person that says, what antenna do you recommend for this area? Because I'd have to run the reception report. I do offer the custom recommendation on my website for a small fee, but I don't mean to be greedy. I would love to help everyone out, but I work like, 9 hours each day on the channel, and it's no longer feasible for me to do it all. So I try my best to respond to every comment and give a general, suggestion on what to do. But if I can, I will refer you to the website and say, sign up for a custom recommendation with me, and I can help troubleshoot, your reception issues.
And again, that was one of the things I really admired about you when I saw how you answered so many of the questions, and even answered one of my questions when I was talking about mine. And I knew that when I said I'm missing out on, and I gave my setup, and I'm like, this is what I got, blah, blah, blah. And I said, this is the channel. And you're like, well, that's because, you're trying to pull something that's on the VHF. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even look, I wasn't even looking at that part of it. So, and you do offer, if someone wants to say, if they like, hey, I need a custom recommendation. So you said on your website, now I didn't post the website. I will post that in the show notes. What was your website? So I can go ahead and, well, I can probably pull that from this video right here.
Yeah, it's AntennaManPA.com. PA is in Pennsylvania because that's where I'm based. Another person got the website AntennaMan, so I couldn't use that.
Yeah, so I'm going to post that over here for y'all. So I have that posted. So we have that. So if you want to go ahead and get a custom recommendation, he can take a look at, and he can take the time of looking at your location, at your channels, and this and that, and he can give you more of a custom direct just for you, an idea of what may work or may not work for you. And I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't even need a new antenna. A lot of times, I want to tell you that, in terms of getting good reception, there can be anything from, there can be 24 different ways to screw up your reception. Anything from using the wrong antenna, the wrong cable, wrong amplifier, unpowered splitters, and the list goes on and on. A lot of times people don't necessarily need a new antenna. They just tell me, well, I have this antenna. Here's a picture of it going through here. And I'm like, you're using an unpowered splitter? And he's like, yeah, I'm connecting 4 TVs to the set. So I'm like, that unpowered splitter is killing your signal. Replace it with a powered splitter. And I get I'm very successful at this. I don't like to toot my own horn, but I've been very successful. Whenever I get some of these recommendations and consultations, I take it very seriously, and I go through thoroughly and see what's going on. And if I don't figure out the reception problems, which rarely happens, I'd say maybe about 5% of the time I get callbacks. I say, I still can't get this. I'll work as hard as I can to get it figured out. And if I can't get it figured out, I give you your money back. Like, that's the way I believe it. Like, I would love to do it for everyone but I just can't do it anymore. And for those of you, I don't know if any of you watch my YouTube channel or
Yeah, I think there's
comment.
numerous people that do, because I mean, there's been numerous people that says, I've been following your channel, and I know I do, but numerous people, the Eagles right here says, I love your channel, one of my favorite YouTube channels.
So I just want to say, and even to you, that I get so many comments and so many emails that the responses may seem direct and may not have good emotion to them. It's not that I don't care. I generally enjoy all my viewers. I appreciate everyone who watches and, want to help everyone. But I have such a high volume of questions and comments that I try real hard to tackle. You will just see me say like 1 or 2 word answers. And it's not to be direct or like I don't care or something like that. It's just because it's very hard for the average person to understand what happens when you reach 600,000 people and you mention your email in each of your videos. A lot happens. And, I'm trying to manage it. It may not be manageable much longer because, I get so many, but, what can I do? Hire someone that doesn't know what they're doing. So I'm just working. I work really hard for everyone. I appreciate the support. So thank you to all of you who are watching me. I'm not closing out. I just want to say thanks to everyone.
I got you. And again, massive props to you and your channel. Like I said, I've been subscribed to your channel for years, and I know I've been blowing up your email about being on the show because the show's about, I want to share what knowledge I learn or who I learn it from. I don't take credit for any of the stuff that I learn. I want to give props to whoever showed it to me or taught it to me. But it's like I want everyone to save money. I want my friends to save money. I want people that I know to save money. I don't want people to throw away money that they don't need to. And when I would watch your channel, you had a lot of information that if someone would go through that information, they had so much that is like, wow, that's why that happened. Like I said, when you talked about ESPN and you talked about why ESPN was charging this amount, and then I know why ESPN can have so much, because they're making a lot of money off of every single cable satellite customer, every single one. They're not making it just off of a handful. Every single one is, and it's like, how can the ESPN have this and this and this? Well, yeah, that makes sense, and that's why no cable company is willing to be without them. Because how can you sell a cable without an ESPN service? I mean, so it definitely, you do a great job. Definitely, if I would highly suggest, if anybody wants to, first of all, subscribe to your channel. Watch the videos. You may not learn something off every single video, but I promise you, every 4 or 5 videos, there's going to be something that you're going to be like, oh, I learned off of that one. Because there is numerous videos that you do that it's an education. It's just a little bit of information. It's like, oh, how TV all fits together is a puzzle. And you do a really good job of explaining it. And you're very, now he's not showing his face. Well, he's showing his face, but he normally stands. It's not a lot of hoopla going on. It's just Tyler talking. And he's like, I'm going to explain why this and this. Now, his videos look a little better than mine because he does edit his. But he'll explain it and just, this is how it is, and this is what I'm explaining. And I just feel like it's a lot of honesty in it's not like you're trying to gouge something. You're not trying to sell stuff all the time. I don't see that. Even if you have an Amazon store, you're not saying, well, get this information if you click on this, and that's how you're going to get it. You're not doing that. Here's the information. Now, if you want to buy something from the Amazon store and you go through my store to get it, fine. But you don't oversell it. If you know what I mean?
No, and that's not what it's about. I feel like a lot of people, it has to do with my ethics. A lot of people get corrupted by money and they see it as a bottom line. If I wanted to, I could technically, and I'm not this kind of person, but another person in my shoes might do this, might get rid of all the antenna reviews and just strictly make videos saying, look, I helped this person get this many channels. Give me $100 and I'll give you a good antenna. It's not about that. It's really about helping people cut the cord. And, if I were able to, I would respond to every single comment and check your reception, tell you what antenna you need. But what that would do is I would never leave my computer. And I mean, literally, I would never leave my computer. I would probably not be able to sleep because I would have to respond to all of them. But I'm a very bad liar. I'm not a good liar. I don't try to lie because I'm very bad at it. So, I'll just say things the way they are. And thankfully, I have 110,000 subscribers. It's great to have that much of a following, and it really means a lot because that many people see TV kind of the same way I do, that it's meant to be. When television came out, it worked like radio. So for example, radios, you turn on a radio, you get your local radio stations. They're everywhere. You pick them up, it's kind of gone backwards where greed has made it so you now have to get it through a cord, and it's gone backwards technology wise too. And it really needs to go back to its roots. It really needs to be the way television was meant to be. Free over the air, buy an antenna, no monthly fees, the best quality. Because if you look at some of the older shows from the 60s and 70s, they were pretty damn good because the networks were competing and they put a lot of effort into getting the viewers, getting the advertisers. And it's kind of gone downhill a bit, but it looks like television is returning to its roots. I'm very happy that people are, following my channel, and I'm helping people out.
You're doing an awesome job. And I'm sorry, Eagles, thank you for pointing this out. And I meant to bring this up. And I know I've been holding you up a while, Tyler. We haven't even went into the Christmas gifts, y'all. And we're going to talk about Christmas gifts and other streaming news before, but I'm sorry I got Tyler on here, and I really want to touch on his expertise in certain aspects of this. All right, so ATSC 3. I'm sorry, ATSC 3.0. Now, I've watched your videos on that. I've talked about it a little bit on my show. Explain, and I know that even my market has rolled that out. What is that, the ATSC 3.0? What is it? How is that going to impact people? What's different from 2.0?
So we're actually currently on ATSC 1.0. There wasn't a 2.0. There was supposed to be, but it never happened. So to understand what it is, we used to have NTSC, which was the television standard in the 60s that had color and it was analog. So that was used for about 40 years. Anyone who remembers analog TV remembers it was NTSC. In the 90s, they created ATSC, which stands for the Advanced Television Systems Committee. They created this new standard that was very revolutionary at the time. If you think about what we have now, this was created in probably the mid-90s. Imagine the 1990s having high definition over the air, multiple channels, crystal clear, high definition. Like, it was really revolutionary at the time. And so it took them about 10, 15 years to convert all the stations and turn off analog and transition to ATSC 1.0, which is what we're on now.
Just for a second. That was when everybody had to go get the digital converters or have a TV that actually had a digital tuner, right?
That's correct. And to answer Eagle's question right now, it's going to be a while. I will get into this in a bit.
Okay.
So ATSC 1.0 was converted, but they didn't do a lot of good testing on it. When they tested it out, they pretty much tested it with outdoor antennas in fixed locations, and they didn't even test out VHF. They tested out UHF. So when the transition happened, what a lot of people noticed is it's not as forgiving as analog, the standard. It has a lot of flaws. It has issues with multipath interference. I'm sure many cord cutters have seen the breakups and dropouts and no signal or stations not coming at all. It has its flaws, but for the time it was very good. So that brings into ATSC 3.0. It's a new television standard that is set to replace the current standard. Now, there's not a guarantee it's most likely going to happen, but the difference between this and the last transition is it's not government mandated. So the FCC isn't saying everyone has to do 3.0, but if they want to, they can convert. So there is a very, very small chance that it may not happen due to the corporate greed of media companies wanting to have a trash signal. But there's a good chance it will happen. So to get in the dynamics of it, the new standard has advanced compression that allows you to have the same picture quality at half the file size and bit rate. So that means double the amount of channels. It's also it's OFDM based, which means that it's very hard to explain. It's a technical term, but it's what our cell phones use. It makes it so you can move the antenna around. There could be a fluctuating signal and you won't have that breakup. You'll have a much more reliable, robust signal that you can even pick up while on the go.
I was gonna say that could be on a cell. You'd actually could be moving like a cell phone or something like that. You could be moving it and still pick up while you're moving.
That's correct. The current standard doesn't allow that. If you if you move an antenna around, you'll notice that it doesn't come in or pixelate. I've tested it out in cars. Now, you can get it if you can see the tower and there's nothing changing, the signal path. But for the most
Drive
part,
around the tower.
yeah, pretty much. But for the most part, it doesn't work. So that's an aspect. Now, ATSC 3.0, I can talk about it for like an hour, like to say the least. I'll definitely.
So what? All right. So what are the all right? So against compression rate, 4K wasn't that 4K and 5.1 wasn't that also added to 3.0? Wasn't that able to get that?
Yes, so 4K, it does support 4K, but one of the common misconceptions is people think ATSC 3.0 is 4K. So for example, in your market, they launched ATSC 3.0. People think, oh, I can get 4K now. That's not the case. It's going to take at least 10 years for these TV stations to upgrade all their equipment, because it's not like they buy a camera and say we're 4K. They have to, upgrade their encoders, their editing software, all of their cameras. They have to get, there's a lot that goes into it. So we'll support 4K, but it's not like if you see ATSC 3.0, you're getting 4K. That's just not happening right away.
One of the other benefits to 3.0 was that it's almost like, to me, when I looked at it, it was a little bit of a computer interface where you could click on certain aspects. You're able to, am I correct on that? You're like, say a news channel would have, say they would do the news and then it would have weather over there. Could I link in on just the news part? So it's like almost like separate feeds?
I see what you're saying. So ATSC 3.0, a good way to describe is it merges television with internet. So there will be an internet interface that you can use. It doesn't mean you need internet to pick up the signal. You can still pick it up without internet. But with the internet, combined with internet, you may see TVs in the future not only just have like a channel that you go through, but let's say NBC6, it'll also have, their weather, their investigative reports, on-demand content, and it may also open the can of worms for paid over-the-air TV, which sounds scary at first. But the thing about paid over-the-air TV is television broadcasters were always able to do it, and it's been tried many times and it's always failed, because broadcasters understand that people who are using antennas, getting their signal for free, are doing it because they don't want to pay for it, and they get a lot of money from the advertisers. So I can see paid over-the-air TV happening in certain markets. Like, for example, you mentioned Disney. Disney owns ESPN and ABC, and in some markets, Disney owns the ABC station through an own and operate agreement. In those markets, I can see ATSC 3.0 allowing them to have ESPN for an additional fee. So let's say you have an antenna, you don't have internet, and you get all the channels. It's probably going to be the same channels you get now. They may get rid of a sub-channel or two to fit the bandwidth, but they can fit more in there because of ATSC 3.0. Anyway, you may see ESPN as an additional channel, and you click on it and it says, sign in the same way you'd see if you tried to access it on an app. But the cool thing about it is you don't need internet service to do it. You could access it just right through the without internet.
Over the air through your TV. Now, one of the things about this, ATSC 3.0 is not built into it's not built in any TVs at the moment, but there's TVs talking about adding that as a tuner in the future. Am I correct on that?
So this is a repeat of what happened in the 90s. So in the 1990s, when they came up with the standard, they did make TV sets that had the new digital high definition tuners in them. But what the manufacturers did, and it was very smart, is they put it in all the high-end models first. So right now, there are some ATSC next-gen tuners that you could buy in the store, but they're like $1,000. And it makes sense because you're not going to put this new chipset in smaller consumer models when they're not going to use it. You're going to wait for the standard to catch on. And that brings in the question, a lot of people say, oh, well, the TV is going to be obsolete. It's obsolete now. It's not. You got to picture it as 1993. Let's say it's 1993 right now. This new standard is coming out. Some stations are testing it out. Few broadcasts, few TV sets, more like the late 90s. We're still a good 5, maybe 10 or more years away from the standard replacing the old ATSC 1.0 standard. And even when it does, you'll likely just need a converter box on your old TV. And it doesn't mean that's obsolete. Like, for example, Fire Sticks, smart TVs, it doesn't make non-smart TVs obsolete. It just means you can upgrade them with a Fire Stick. So that's what's interesting. There really aren't many tuners on the market. And there's a reason for it, because there aren't many broadcasts on the market. Like, I hear people say, oh,
they're up to when I looked at a thing on this, it was like over 150, 160 markets in the US are actually went to 3.0 to try it out. I was surprised that there were so many that, because even my market, there was not all the stations. Some of the stations were actually broadcasting in 3.0. And I looked up the price of one of those tuners and I was like, no, I don't think so. I think I'll wait on that.
It actually is less. I think it's like a handful of markets. It's not 100-something markets. It's definitely a handful of markets. And I'd say it's probably about 30% right now in terms of the penetration, because the pandemic screwed it up. But I want to say most areas don't have it. Your area happens to have it. You got lucky. But for example, New York, Philadelphia, Boston, a lot of big cities, they don't have it now. And there's some dynamics behind it that I could get into if the viewers are interested. But, if there's other general questions, feel free to let me know, or you can just ask me time instead of whatever works.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and you guys have any other questions for Tyler? Because we're at an hour and 20 minutes. Because I knew that I would have a lot of questions, and there's so much information. Tyler's one of those people that has more information than what you got time, because there is a lot of information, and that's not a knock. There's so much information, and I could spend hours with him, and there is stuff that's happening. So you guys, if you got some questions, if I missed your question, please post it over there on the side, and I will look at it and try to ask Tyler, because we're going to try to run through, because I definitely want to reach some of the other big news for streaming and gift ideas, because I went through and spent a whole day of trying to pull up some gift ideas, because we're almost at Christmas, and if I don't pull up gift ideas on this show, you're going to be kind of SOL on that. So all right, so Tyler, if you had to, and then I'm not kicking you off the show, but if you were kind of going to wrap up about what, if someone was thinking about cutting the cord, or why should they cut the cord, or why should they get an antenna, why should they do it, and what would be some of the ideas behind it?
So one thing I'll say about people who cut the cord is no one ever regrets it. I never hear someone who says, I cut the cord and I missed these channels. They say the opposite. They say, I thought I needed these channels and I don't need these channels. And they see all the money they're saving. They're just very happy about it. To get started, you're free to, my YouTube channel. I don't like to toot my own horn, but it's very hard to put it in one sentence in terms of what to do. If you're going to buy an antenna, don't buy a generic brand. Go with the main companies, Channel Master, Winegard, RCA, and a new company known as Televis. They're a very good, reputable company that's big in other parts of the world, and they're just starting to come in the United States. And just think logically, if you're, 50, 60 miles from the broadcast tower, you think a little flat antenna is going to do well for you. It isn't. But there's a lot to it. I would say outdoor antennas are always going to work better than indoor antennas. I think the only people who can use indoor antennas are about 10 or 20 miles from the broadcast towers. Beyond that, you have to deal with, obstruction, a slightly weaker signal, and it's just not going to be as reliable inside. You definitely want to go, I don't want to say go big, because if you're in a strong signal area, you really don't need a giant Channel Master antenna. You can get a small Clearstream or compact Yagi. But if you are kind of further away from the towers, it's the motto go big or go home really applies to this, because if you try to bargain hunt and buy a bunch of junk antennas, you may not see them as junk. You may think they're HD digital antennas. They're not, the pieces of junk. You'll spend more money on trying to bargain hunt these cheap antennas than if you just bought one decent model.
Amen. I mean, when people have bought, and Tyler, I talk about people with these cheap Android boxes, and I'm like, just buy a good box, buy a good box, buy an NVIDIA Shield, buy something quality, and you're not going to have to buy it over and over and over. You're done. And again, you can throw money away, good money after bad, fine. But for me, spend a little money or spend a little more and be done. And that's how I've looked at it. And you're correct about depending on your location. Some people get away with a Mohu indoor, and they'll be like, I pick up 40 stations with an indoor antenna. Sure. I mean, but I can't. I could probably pick up 15. But is it some of the 15 I want? That's the key. For me, there's certain channels that I want to see that local news. And that's where I think a lot of times these people jump into and end up paying the cable company or satellite company because they're vested on that particular channel or that newscast or those anchors or that weather or whatever. And they're vested so they won't change. And you've got to be a little flexible. And if you're willing to be flexible and get a decent antenna, it's easy to do. It's easy to do. I wanted to go ahead. Tyler, you're more than welcome. I'd love for you to stay because what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about Christmas ideas. So you guys, I will say this. I posted his YouTube channel in the show notes. I also posted the video where we talked about what happened while your channels are being blocked, why you may find that your NBC, CBS, whatever channels are gone from your DirecTV or Dish Network if you were paying for it. That video is in the show notes. Watch that video. It explains a lot of what we talked about in this, that corporate greed and blackmail, a lot of shady shit is happening right now because of this. And however you want to react, you can say, well, you know what, I'm just going to change companies or I'm going to stick with my company. Hey, information is up for you. You figure that out. But definitely all those links are in there. And once somebody said something about there's a tuner. A lot of TVs have tuners in them. If you go back to the 90s, no, they did not have the newer tuners. And that's why I remember back in the day, we had to buy the little box because we had an old CRT Sony TV and that weighed about 4,000 pounds. And you had to buy the little digital converter box. Well, you don't have to do that no more because that's already in most TVs. I think if you found one that did not, I think the only ones that don't have it now are the ones that are monitors.
Yeah, I was just about to say,
Vizio
monitors are the only ones that don't have it. Like if it's labeled as a
Vizio did
monitor.
Yeah, Vizio did that on TVs. They sold it as a TV, but it was really a monitor. It had no tuner in it. So if you didn't have if you didn't have cable or internet or cable or satellite, it wouldn't work. But that was Vizio did that for about a year. And it was a real, but all the TVs I've bought, I always make sure they have a tuner. I always read the small print. Like I said, I think Vizio did that just for a short period of time. I think they were just trying to save money. It's probably what they were trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Albin said, thank you very much, Tyler. Massive props. Again, watch his videos, watch his channels. Definitely, you're going to learn. You're going to learn a lot from that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take a look at, I don't know if Tyler, I don't know if you're done with your Christmas shopping yet.
I haven't even started.
Well, I'm going to give all kinds of ideas, and y'all, this is what we're going to do here. Now, I'm not trying to sell you nothing. I'm going to give you links that I found, and I'm going to give you suggestions. If you guys have some suggestions of other Christmas items that you think are great ideas, post them over in the side chat. I will do my best to look over there. And Tyler, if you're still here, you can holler out one of those over there because I'm going to be looking at the tab. And we're going to take a look at some of the ideas because we're in the Christmas crunch, y'all. You got 21 days. Really, you got 20 days because you can't count Christmas Day because you're not getting a delivery on Christmas Day. So you got about 20 days to get your gifts at your place. And these are some things that I've thought about. And let me go ahead and I'm going to share. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to share my whole tab because that makes it easier for me. So I'm going to share. Yeah, I'm going to go that one. All right. So it's going to be jacked up until I go over here. All right. So one of the things I saw on today was Ultra Beauty, the beauty box. So if you got a girl that may have an idea that wants some makeup, and we're not talking fancy makeup, because anybody that's bought makeup at a department store knows how expensive this is. This is a great idea. I saw this, and you can actually get this for $14 with a coupon code. $14. You got all kinds of little stuff in here. This is probably not going to work for your wife. This will probably work for your daughter or for a niece or somebody like that. But $14, a great little little box. I think it looks really neat. Really nice idea for $14. One of the other things I wrote in here for some of the girls or the women in your Christmas list: fuzzy socks and soft PJs. Now, I'll be honest, anybody that's watched my show, and I will talk about my house pants that I wear. House pants normally. I'm actually wearing jeans today because Tyler was here. I was trying to be dressed up, so I wore jeans. Normally, I'd wear my house pants. Fuzzy socks and PJs, a great idea. You can buy them all kinds of prices. You choose what you're going to find for that. But all kinds of ideas. That's a great little easy, cheap gift to get somebody that they're actually going to like. For some of your gamer friends, I saw Target had Madden 2021, Madden 21 for $29. So if you have some friends that are, or a kid that's into Madden, great price. I know it doesn't have super great ratings, but some boys may not really care. They think that it's a great idea, but $30 for that. And that was actually in that did come in the PS5, PS4, and the Xbox Series. Headphones. Headphones was another thing that I know that tons and tons of people are looking. I'm a bit cheap, so when someone says $150 for some headphones, I'm laughing at you. But some Beats, granted, they're white and gold, so maybe white and gold don't really work for you. But $150 for some Beats is a great price. If you go and look at some of these other colors, the price jumps up. So yeah, look at it, $229 for some of those. Walmart has these, but if you're willing to get some white ones, $150, and no thanks for me. But again, these are just ideas for y'all. The other thing that is real popular this year, and actually last year, was earbuds, like the Apple earbuds. And so you've got, if you don't have an Apple device, you've got other ones. So earbuds are super, super popular this year. You can go the gambit, but I think if you're going to go with this, if it's this for someone, a random relative, you probably can get away with them $50 ones. If you're getting them for some of a close family member, your kids or someone like that, you're probably going to want to go with a name brand. You're not going to want to go with something simple like that. So you're going to want to go with something nice. So we got that. Fire devices. All right. So anybody that follows my channel, anybody that follows my channel knows, again, we're about streaming. Every fire device is on right now. And I don't know if you have any of these devices, Tyler. These devices are off the chain on the price. If you can afford the Cube, go with the Cube. $80. The Cube actually added support for video cameras. So you can actually use you can get certain webcams and link it to your Fire Cube and stream it on your TV. So if you have family members that you're doing this distance, you're doing the distance holidays, you can use the new Fire Cube, not the old one, but the new Fire Cube 4K, the Generation 2, and with certain webcams, you can actually link it into it and link with certain apps and see them on your TV, and they're able to see you. So if you're looking for some of this Amazon Lights, $18. $18. Everyone's cutting the cord on a lot of, even if you do, Tyler talked about semi cord cutting. So you're going to do the Hulu and you're going to do the Netflix and this and that. Even if you're doing that, you start with $18. You don't need a smart TV. You can do it with an $18 Fire TV light stick. And as long as they're not watching 4K, it's going to work. And I mean, $18. I mean, and there again, Amazon, Target, Best Buy, Staples, they all have it. So definitely want to check out those as options for some inexpensive gift for that. If you're talking about the man in your family, let me post this because I didn't do this correctly. So who's not worried about the police when you're driving? Maybe Tyler, because he probably drives right. But I drive a little quick. A radar detector, another great deal. If you're looking for, I don't want to say just the man, because I guess some women drive fast. But definitely a radar detector is a good idea. Something outside of the box, maybe something that you want to get. They have, if you're going to go with someone that doesn't like this, this Cobra offers a link where it can link into your phone and give you red light camera alerts, all kinds of stuff like that. One of the new things for cooking is, what's it, sous vide? I don't know how to say that. Basically, you're cooking with hot water. That is, it started a couple years ago. I'm a butcher, so I see people that cook a lot of ways. This is a new way of a lot of people are cooking. I think this year it's going to be I don't think it's going to be as popular this year. So if you want to be on the front end of giving a gift before it becomes popular, like it will next year, this is one of the things. You're able to cook with a certain temperature. You could put the items in a bag. You cook it with water. This is super, super popular. So you may want to take a look at this. They have, this is one of those items that's, if you get this for someone you love, if they're a cookie, I guess that's a word. If they're a cookie kind of person, this is something very neat. This one actually had Wi-Fi, a Wi-Fi feature. Oh, and that reminds me of a Wi-Fi, and I didn't post this in here. Wi-Fi, hold on a second here. Wi-Fi thermometer. You guys, if you want to blow away some of your family and your friends, give them a Wi-Fi. I actually have one of these, a Wi-Fi cooking thermometer. You put this in your food, and you put it you can put it in the oven, or you can put it in your grill. And on your phone, it actually shows you the exact temperature of inside the meat. So a great way of cooking, and you're able to know the exact temperature of the inside the meat. This is another item that's I've used. I have one. I have a Weber one. I don't see the Weber. I have a Weber, and it is so nice. I mean, it tells you the exact temperature, shows you a graph. I don't even see it in here, but great item to get as a Christmas gift. Food Ninja, or Ninja Foodie, which is a Instapot and a air fryer. Great idea to have as a gift. You're able to Instapot as well as air fry in one device. And I think I posted, I have two. This is the Ninja Foodie, and I think Instapot. This is the other one. The Instapot offers the same thing. If you guys have not used an Instapot, you're missing it. There's nothing easier than cooking with an Instapot. It's so good. You set it. It's worry free. Another great idea, Instapot. This offers the Instapot as well as the air fryer in one unit. So you don't have to have 2 units. All you have to have is a different lid, and you can see it right here. Here's the Instapot lid is on the device, and then the air fryer lid is beside it. So another great thing. Let's see. Jump starters. This is something that I have given every one of my kids, and that is a car jump starter. You can pay, you can jump around with the price. You can go 80. Here's one for $200. Don't buy no $200 one. I normally pay somewhere between 55 to 80 bucks for some of the name brand ones. This Noco is a good brand. I've also bought Anchor. I've bought the DB Power is another one that I've bought. The nice things about these, y'all, is you can keep, this is as big as a battery pack. If you've ever had a phone battery pack, you know how big that is. I'm talking, it's what, 3 or 4 inches by 6 inches, maybe 2 inches thick. And it goes in its own case, and it comes with these little jumper cable things. You can keep this in your trunk for 4 to 6 months, depending on the quality of it. Now, that does depend. But some quality, you can keep it for 6 months in there without a problem. And when you need a jump start, you just pull that out. You plug in the jumper cable, and you plug it to your battery, and it will kickstart your motor. This time of year, when we've hit the cold months, when you see a lot of people's batteries failing, I've bought these. I have it for me, and I have them for each one of my kids. And I highly recommend having these in your trunk, because who wants to pull out the jumper cables and have to pull your car in front of somebody else's car to jump it off, when I can pull out this little packet? And I mean, it's this. Let me click on this one. It is so small. I mean, it's a little pouch. And I walk up to their car, I pull out this little battery pack, and I plug it in, and I jump their car, and I'm done. It's at work. Most of them come with a light. Some come with emergency light. They almost all come with ways that you can actually use it as a battery pack. So if you want to charge a laptop or a cell phone, you can actually use it for that too. And most of them will charge off of a cigarette lighter, which I should say what nowadays is what, an auxiliary power inside of a car, because nobody has a cigarette lighter anymore. So you can charge it off of that. And no lie, I keep mine. I probably charge it every 4 or 5 months, and it sits in my trunk the rest of the time. A great thing to buy for someone that you love, that your family member, because who wants to be broke down late at night in a dark when their battery fails? This can help save them. And you use this one time, it saves you from a AAA or a tow truck to come jump you off, because a tow truck's going to charge you about $100 to come rolling out there. So great idea. This is another idea that I have shared with. I've gotten this numerous friends of mine. Is a battery, little one of those power banks. And these things can, now again, they depend on the wattage. You can get higher milliamps or lower milliamps depending on the cost. Some of this one here, look at this, 26,000, and it's $14. If you have someone that's going to go camping or out on a bike ride or out on a motorcycle that doesn't have an auxiliary to plug in their phone, these are awesome. They're not very big. If you go, when I go to see Blue and I fly to Canada, I take one of these, and my phone never is under 99% because I just plug it into this, and I'm getting 20,000 milliamp of power before I ever get there. So usually when I get to Canada, I've lost maybe 40% of the power. And so it's an awesome thing to have. Another idea that is outside of the box that you may not have thought about is a tile. I don't know if you guys have ever heard about tiles. These are GPS type items that you can put in your phone. or you can hook it onto your phone. You can hook it onto your keys. You can hook it onto your wallet. You can hook it onto your purse. And you can use the GPS to find where that's at. Or you actually can click the button and it'll make a noise. So say you lost your phone and it went down in the couch and it fell down underneath the couch and you can't find it. You go and set the tile off, but you can set it off by one of the other devices and it will beep and you'll be able to find the device wherever you hooked it to, and it fell inside the couch. These are a great, people think, oh, that's stupid, until you need it. Until you can't find your keys and you pick up your phone and you say, find my keys. And all of a sudden you found your keys had, fallen behind the couch or fallen behind the bed or something like that. Great idea. And like I said, most of these are items that I've bought for people and they're not crazy priced. I mean, depends on which pack you buy. You can buy expensive packs or buy little packs. One of the other items, a Raspberry Pi. I don't know if y'all have bought Raspberry Pis. Raspberry Pis, you can go with a 3B plus. Right now, it's going to run you about, a whole kit's going to run you $60. Raspberry Pi 4 is going to run you, most of them are going to be $80 to $90. I see this one's $99. Here's an $84 one. Raspberry Pi 4s, and these are mini computers, and you can do a ton of stuff with this. You can do all kinds of stuff. I do my RetroPie, my gaming stuff. You guys have seen videos where I've done video and gaming on this. You can do that. You can do all kinds of stuff. These Raspberry Pi 4s or even 3 are great little how-to or DIY gifts. So if you got somebody that wants to try something, look at this kit right here, $60 for a Raspberry Pi 3B Plus, which is not a bad device. I actually own a 3B Plus. I have my retro set up. It plays all the way up to Dreamcast, does okay. I can't play Wii on it, but I can play PSP decent. Anything below that, of course, I can play on my RetroPie. So definitely great idea. The other item I wanted to show before I finish here is people ask about my headphones. So these are not on sale. I actually bought them when they were on sale. And people ask me which one I have. And this is a SteelSeries Arctis 5 with the RGB. That is the headset I have. Sometimes I've seen these as low as $70. Right now they're not. They're out of stock. So these are the headphones I've got. Great headphones. If you have glasses, I highly, highly suggest these because most headphones suck if you've got glasses. So, all right. So that was, let me go ahead and, all right. So that was all my talking. Huh.
It's all good. I mean, you had some very good ideas. Like you're inspiring me to like shop for some of the things that you show because I just didn't really know what to get anyone this year.
Well, I tried to, and honestly, most of those gifts that I showed everybody are gifts that I have bought for myself or for people. Most of them are gifts that I actually bought for people. Robbie says they're Genesis, Sega Genesis on it, and Amiga. Yeah, Robbie, that the Raspberry Pi 3 plays all those easily. I have mine, and I will do some videos on my when Blue gets here. I'm going to do some videos on my arcade stick. And Tyler, do you know what an arcade stick is? You ever seen one of those?
I have never seen it. I'm guessing that you put like a bunch of older games on it and you can play on TV or something.
Well, yes, no. So no, because all the games are on my Raspberry Pi. So they're on my little mini Raspberry Pi, my little mini computer. All the games are on that. The arcade stick is almost like if you go to the arcade and you remember, see, you're a little bit younger than me. So at the arcade, when you would have two people that would play, like say Mortal Kombat. And you remember when you played Mortal Kombat, you'd play beside someone, you had the joystick and all the buttons. The gamepad that I have, you can play two people side by side and it plugs into the Raspberry Pi. So it plays as a like almost like you're at an arcade machine. weighs about 20 pounds. And in all fairness, what I'm probably going to do with it, I'm going to, in the future, I'm going to make a cheap man's arcade stand. I'm going to put a TV on the wall, put a table right beside it, put my arcade stick there, put 2 high chairs, and then have the TV screen there, put my Raspberry Pi up behind it where you don't see it, and you'll be able to play. I think my image, I got a 512 gig image on there, and it's what, 12,000 games, 8,000 games, something like that. So you'll be able to play anything from Atari 2600 to PSP-ish, anything that. So, but definitely. So Tara says the SOS feed, is it SOS feed, and the Wi-Fi thermometer. Definitely, I have the Wi-Fi thermometer. And when Blue was here last year, I was cooking prime rib. Anybody that's cooked prime rib, that is, you got to be particular with that. I mean, that is exact temperature. And I put that meat thermometer in it, and I shut the oven, and I'm sitting there. And there's no lie. I sit here with my phone. I'm like, oh, that's at 110 degrees. We're not opening the oven yet. And she's like, what? I'm like, oh, we up to 115 now. Oh, we're almost there. You know, because I'm 120 degree, pull it out because it's going to kick up a little bit 5 degrees after. But great idea. I mean, and those are great things that I'll admit that I use. I use my Instapot. I don't want to say every week. Every other week I use it. There's nothing going to beat the, you cook baby back ribs in an Instapot and you can't beat it. You can't beat it. So see, Kyle said, plus the add-on packs we added. Well, the add-on packs, if you got your Raspberry Pi, you actually can do all that, Kyle. And Octavia says, intro me to the Pi. I'm telling you, Octavia, there is some really cool things. If you have a Raspberry Pi, if you have an old Raspberry Pi, if you want to create your own VPN, everyone's about, oh, safety VPN. You can actually get Pi-hole, put it on a cheap. I'm talking about the Raspberry Pi 1. You can put a Pi-hole on that and plug it into your modem and run a VPN in your whole network and protect yourself if you're looking to do that. And cheaper than buying IP Vanish or one of these other things. Buzz, what about my mini PC is actually, I've got the Chewy mini PC, and I will be doing, Virtual Man actually is making a PC build for retro gaming, and I am going to break that out. I'm going to break the Chewy out on that. I'm going to see how well it does. I was talking to Virtual Man the other day, and he says, I probably can play on that Chewy because of the video card. Dreamcast will probably be the limit. He says you might get away with some low-end Wii games, but that's going to be about it because of the chip. If I had a PC with a better video card, I could go higher. So depends. I play all my games, all my retros on my Pi. And actually, I actually turned Kyle onto a Pi, and he actually ended up buying, I think he bought 2, because he bought one for retro, and he says, I didn't realize all the things you can do with a retro Pi, or with a Raspberry Pi. I'm like, it's a mini PC that's cheap as shit. I mean, you can't beat the price. Canuck Gal, never heard of a tile. Hey, ask Canuck Gal, send a message to Blue. I bought her the tiles last year. And 619, the tile on my keys. It is really, it's one of those items that people are like, that sounds stupid, until you get it. And you're like, oh, I couldn't find my keys. And you go on your phone, and you're like, oh, my keys. And then all of a sudden you hear it go off, and you're like, oh, there's my keys. Or whatever you put it in, your wallet or your purse or whatever it is. So, all right. So, hey, I want to ask Tyler one other question. So, since you're a cord cutter and all that kind of stuff like that, So, what are some of the devices that you use there at your home? I mean, of course, you use an antenna. So, what other things do you use?
So I also use a Fire TV stick. I used to use Chromecast, but I would run into the issue where I didn't know where my phone was or something like that. I just kind of like the remote. Um, but I prefer the Fire Stick. I know just based off my customers when I set up antennas, Roku is a little more simpler and easier to navigate for people who aren't the best with technology. But
True.
I think the Fire Stick is probably the most powerful out of most, if not all, of the streaming devices, just because of what it can do, and it works well, and it's just great.
Yeah, the Fire Stick 4K is good. And well, I'll say all the Fire Sticks, as long as you're getting past the Generation 2. Once you get into the 4K or even the new Fire Sticks, all great. They're fine. I have an NVIDIA Shield, which is, and my most of the viewers, that is the Cadillac of streaming device. I mean, it is streaming / gaming. You can do gaming as well as streaming on it. Uh, you're talking NVIDIA, who is not going to skimp on your video processor and your chips. They're not going to skimp on that. So, but on the downside, it is the most expensive. So you figure out what fits your needs. For most of my early cord cutters or new cord cutters, I say get a Fire Stick 4K. You can get those for 25 to 40 bucks. Great device, great processor, great RAM that's in it, and it just doesn't have the storage. That's the only downside. But most of your early cord cutters are not looking for storage. They're just looking to, I just want to stream whatever, whatever the thing is. So yeah, Redneck says the Ferrari. It's the high end of the devices. So, but yeah, I use that. One of the other things I wanted to post or mention, well, two things. Turks APK 1.0.2 came out this week. Take a look. You want to download it. You have to download the new one. Sinclair APK came out. He came out with a new version of it. So you're going to want to take a look at that. It actually does a pretty good job of if you're into that APK. Just keep in mind, and I've mentioned this before, Sinclair is going to start charging people, and that is on the horizon. So you've been warned. Warner Brothers is going to release all their movies in 2021 on HBO Max, as well as the movie theaters at the same time. I don't know if you guys think that's a good idea, a bad idea, but during this pandemic time, they're going to release them at the exact same time. Wonder Woman 84. What's it? Christmas Day. It's going to be at the theaters as well as HBO Max. Most of us, we don't need HBO Max, and we will be watching it. I don't know. What do you think about that, Tyler? Do you think with Warner Brothers releasing their movies on the HBO Max app as well as the theater at the same time, what's your thoughts on that?
It's crazy because the theater industry, of course, had to adjust to the pandemic and do what they got to do. I think it's a good idea because the reason is a lot of people don't want to go out, or maybe they would like to go to the movies with their grandmother or someone who's more vulnerable to COVID. It gives them the ability to still see movies as they come out while not having to go out in public. Now, unfortunately, what may happen is if it ends up catching on and people just decide they want to watch in their own home, it may kill the movie theater industry as a whole in terms of, AMC and the actual movie theaters, because they're hurting right now, and it's really hard. I mean, they were hurting before, and it's just, I hate to say it. I mean, if this pandemic doesn't clear up soon, I'm a little concerned because they can't just keep operating with no customers for years on end. They have expenses.
Yeah, I saw that they posted they sold off 200 million shares. AMC sold off 200 million shares within the last couple of days to try to stay afloat. That's scary. I don't want to see an industry like that go away. To go to the theater to see a movie is an experience. Blue and I have went to numerous movies to see movies, and it is an experience. So you sit down with the popcorn, and you got the big theater and the music and the sound and all. It's different than when I'm sitting on my couch watching. Even if I have surround sound on, it's not the same. So I hope that they're able to weather the storm and make it through it. I am a little bit surprised that drive-in theaters have not taken off better. I would have thought this would have been the time where drive-in theaters would have just flourished. But I guess maybe the setup time, they weren't able to ramp up quick enough. Who knows? But yeah, you're going to see Warner Brothers, and that's they named off all their movies. And I don't have their movies listed, but I mean, it's a lot of movies. So they're going to release 2021. It will be on HBO Max as well at the theater at the same time. AMC is having a fit about it, of course, because they feel like they're being sold out, because they're like, well, why is someone going to come to the theater when they can watch it at the movies? So that's going to happen. Sorry to see that. Many of our add-ons, you guys, if you guys have been looking at add-ons, take a look at most of them have a Christmas section now. So I don't want to list all of them, but there's numerous add-ons that are listing Christmas sections. And Vikings, the last thing I had on here was Vikings is going to release on Amazon before they release on the History Channel. And that's the Vikings TV show, which is, to me, a bit surprising that they're willing to go to Amazon before they go to the History Channel, who the History Channel is where they were shown. They've been there all this time. So for you guys that are following the Vikings, the TV show Vikings, that will be coming out. I think it's going to be starting the end of this year. So take a look.
Yeah, I almost feel like Amazon, because, for example, the funny thing is, when we were looking for a game back 3 years ago when I was still in state college and living with college students, was they had mentioned the game is live streaming on Amazon. I noticed that's happening like more and more, where Amazon is pretty much the richest. I don't know if they are I know Jeff Bezos is the richest guy in the world, but Amazon, if they're not the richest company in the world, they're probably up there. I could see as time goes on, they begin to acquire rights of popular programs, including live sporting events and possibly TV shows, as you said, because why wouldn't they? You know, it almost entices people, you know, if it's on Amazon, oh, Amazon, let me go buy this and buy that. It's a pretty smart move for them. So
yeah, I mean, I have an Amazon Prime account, so I can't I can't knock it. I mean, I'm a subscriber to Amazon Prime, and I love I'm not that I watch their live programming. I've watched very little of their programming. I just like their 2-day air or their 2-day shipping is the only thing that I do. Let's see. 619 says, Tyler, do you know anything about Amazon getting over the air?
Yes. In fact, they have made the Fire TV Recast, which was one of the first DVRs I got a hold of about a year and a half ago, where it's a cool device where you connect it to an antenna, and it goes on your home's Wi-Fi, and you can access it on pretty much any device, anywhere. You know, your smartphone, a smart TV, a Roku. Since then, I've discovered Tableau does the same thing, and they do it a little bit better. But the Fire TV Recast is great if you have a Fire Stick and the signals aren't too weak. They do have a glitch on the Recast where if the signal is weak, even if there's no picture breakup, there's this annoying weak or no signal message that pops up on the screen, and there's forums about people complaining to Amazon to get rid of it, and they don't get rid of it. So that's the only issue I would say, is if you have weak signals, don't go with the Recast because of that. But besides that, you know, if you don't get that annoying message, the problem with the message was it would come up when there would be no breakup or anything. The picture would be fine. The sound would be fine. You'd see this annoying message come up right on the screen while you're trying to watch TV. Besides that, you know, it works. It does a good job. It's a good deal. I think it's like $170. And it comes with a built-in hard drive.
Yeah, I think. What are you talking about? The recast? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I've looked at them and people talked about should they get a I don't know. I'm a person that I don't need a recast. I can find what I need to find, but yeah. But yeah, that's so let me see if I was looking. I don't see any other questions. So we're gonna go ahead and roll. We're at 2 hours, and I try to do my best to keep us at 2 hours, unless I get my drunk on, which I'm trying not to get my drunk on. I don't see any other questions. So I'm gonna go ahead. Tyler, anything you want to finish up with before we roll out of here?
Not really. I think anyone who's been watching this live stream gets an idea of who I am and my knowledge with over-the-air TV. Definitely check out my channel. I have a lot of useful videos on there and a lot of resources, my website, the Amazon store, to help whoever wants to. And as you said, Todd, like people who want to pay for cable and, live streaming services, you're free to do that. Like no one's saying you have to, you're fine to do that, but I'd really feel that cutting the cord and really cutting the cord, it's a huge advantage because even live streaming services like Hulu Plus Live and Amazon, or not Amazon, YouTube TV, they're going to have the same retransmission disputes that happen on Dish, and they already have on Amazon on YouTube TV. Some networks were pulled from a big media company for a little bit while they were negotiating. And what usually happens is they cave because the subscribers say, we're going to leave you if you drop the channels, if you don't bring them back. And the rate goes up. The rate goes up. Like if you look at history, YouTube TV, when it came out, it was $35 a month only 3 years ago. It's now $65 a month. That's almost double. And it's just going to keep happening and happening and happening until the system collapses. The only way it can collapse is if people wake up and realize they're being taken advantage of and say, no more. I'm not going to, I'm not going to put money towards Perry Sook, who's the CEO of Nexstar, $1 billion company. I'm not going to do that anymore. I think people will come to their senses, but they're misled by the TV stations they watch. That's a whole nother story for those of you that want to see the video. It's definitely going to make your blood boil. But pretty much check out my YouTube channel. And for Frank that's asking better reception of PBS, it depends what frequency they're on. So I couldn't tell you how to
location.
I don't know.
It definitely depends on where you're at. Yeah, it depends on where you're at on your what market you're in, where your location. So yeah, you can that's a big. It's hard. Like again, there's no one size fits all on.
Well, yeah. I mean, if he's talking about PBS on the low VHF band, because I also have a video on this. A lot of PBS stations took millions of dollars from the FCC to go to a low VHF channel, which is very hard for over-the-air TV. Some included in Pittsburgh and Boston, they did it. And they didn't really tell their viewers what was going on. They just kind of pocket the money and still solicit donations. So if that's the case, a low VHF antenna would help if your PBS station sold out their over-the-air viewers. But if you go to my channel and type in PBS AntennaMan, I'll explain. You can find out if you're, what's going on with the PBS station. Because a lot of people did lose PBS when that happened.
Yeah, I do remember, now that you mentioned that, I do remember you doing a video about certain stations selling out part of it and lowering, changing so that they could pocket the money and they're like, well, we're still here. Well, we're on a lower frequency and harder to get, but we pocketed the money to give that. I don't know if it's right to saying bandwidth to the back too, because it's a money game, you guys, and so just be careful. And if you get the right equipment, you can watch stuff. If you're trying to be cheap, you probably are not you're gonna struggle.
That's a good way to put it.
So I got so I'm gonna go ahead and close this out here. Again, I want to thank Tyler, the Antenna Man, for coming on. Again, I have, and I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, I've watched your videos for years now and learned so much. And a lot of the information that you have given in your videos that you have talked about, be it on the aspects of why certain things cost the way they are. I try to share that with my followers and saying, hey, this is what's happening right now, you guys. I mean, because it's about spreading information. It's about sharing what you know and learning. So again, thanks for what you do every single day. Thanks for the help that you've given numerous people that I've seen on your forums. And again, if people want to definitely subscribe, but if you have issues, go to your website and ask questions, and you can get one-on-one help, because he can't give broad help to thousands of people. I mean, it's impossible. So
Yeah, I tried, but it didn't work, so I had to change a few things.
yeah, it's not gonna work. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, I'm a small YouTuber with a handful. What I got over 10,000 subscribers, and the people that message me, and I have to pick and choose. I mean, there's times I have to ignore certain things. Going like, I can't. No, I can't. It's just too much. I can't answer that back. I got a full-time job. I can't do that. So thanks for everyone joining. Hopefully you guys learned something. Like, subscribe, share, all that BS that I guess that all the other YouTubers say, and definitely subscribe to AntennaMan. Subscribe to him. Check out what his videos are, because there is pure knowledge on this guy. There's definitely knowledge, and we're here to teach you to save money. Maybe, again, like I said earlier, one size doesn't fit all on what packages or how much you want to cut the cord. But the more you cut the cord, you're going to save some money. And stop subscribing to all of these big satellite and these cable companies, because most of them are at the mercy of all these other companies, and everyone's making money off of you. Honestly, I'm not going to, if I don't count my internet, I pay less than $20 a month for all of everything I have. Less than $20. So if you're paying those extraordinary amounts, that $100, $120, $130, $140, $200 a month, you might want to check into that. Why? Yeah, I have a good antenna, sure. And I have other things that do it. So take a look at that. Hit me up. I will post my Telegram chat in the bottom in the show notes. So if you guys can join my Telegram chat, I will do my best to answer those questions. And that's all I have on the notes. And if I missed your questions, I'm sorry. And